If the New York Mets don't sign Juan Soto, what's their plan B? We'll talk about it on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Juan Soto sweepstakes are still alive and well. What is the latest? Well, Buster Olney of ESPN is reporting that Juan Soto is set to receive formal offers this week. Now, take every Juan Soto report with a grain of salt, but that timeline does make a lot of sense. The initial meetings have already taken place. Juan Soto has reportedly met with the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Blue Jays, and the Red Sox. 6 big market teams. It makes sense that those are the teams that are in the running to put together a $600+ million offer. There could be the mystery teams. Maybe the Giants are, somewhere in the periphery. Maybe the Washington Nationals, who have so much money coming off their books, maybe they're trying to get back in on their former superstar and they're going to be the team. Most likely, though, it feels like it's going to be one of those 6 big market teams, and most believe it's probably going to be the Mets or the Yankees. The question is, when does all of this go down? The winter meetings are obviously the big, huge, date to always look at. It's the big, calendar moment of the offseason where you hope everything happens. I know I have so many fond memories of, watching MLB Network, nonstop as a kid, as free agents are flying off the board and you're just seeing this brand new league that's getting made in front of you with, the Mets got whoever it is, and the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Red Sox, they all signed big free agents. So you're seeing players go all over the place. That's what we want. That's what we're all hoping for. But Juan Soto could clog things up. Last year, you had Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Those 2 guys really clogged the market. And then you had Boras' free agents. You had, Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, Matt Chapman? Was that the Boras? Who was the 4th of the Boras 4? I can't even remember who the other one was. Jordan Montgomery wasn't part of the Boras 4, was he? Regardless, doesn't matter. But last year, the Scott Boras's Boras 4 free agents held things up for a long time. It's killing me. I can't remember who the other one was. But regardless, we could see something similar this year, right? If Juan Soto doesn't sign, everything could be held up. And it could be a really quiet winter meetings. And I don't think that Scott Boras wants that because he has a lot of work to do. You look at Scott Boras's client list. Not only does he have Juan Soto, he's got Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman. You can make a case he has the top 3 position player free agents. Willy Adames might have a word there, but he's got 3 of the 4. Then you have, as just secondary free agent position players whose market could be held up by Juan Soto in some capacity, you have Tyler O'Neill and Jurickson Profar, Scott Boras clients, outfielders. Hae-Sung Kim, Scott Boras client, not an outfielder, but Alex Bregman, Willy Adames, those dominoes might have to fall before Kim. If Scott Boras is just all focused on Soto, all these other guys get held up. And that's not even to mention the pitching side of it, where he's got Corbin Burnes and Blake Snell, arguably the top 2 starting pitchers on the market, with Max Fried right there, who's not a Scott Boras client. You have Yusei Kikuchi and Sean Manaea, Boras clients who could be held up here. You have further down the list, Max Scherzer's a free agent again, Frankie Montas. You have JD Martinez, Josh Bell, Michael Conforto, Joey Gallo, Mike Moustakas. Not that any of those guys take priority, but the point is Scott Boras has a ton of work to do this offseason. 17 free agents just on the ones that I could find. There might be others. You look at Wikipedia's list of these 65 active clients that Scott Boras has, 17 of them in this free agent class. That's over a quarter of them. So he has to really get to work here. And I think there's enough heat with the Yankees and the Mets bidding amongst other teams to get that price where they want it and to get Juan Soto signed. My prediction is this thing gets done by the winter meetings, but even better, I think it's going to take place day one of the winter meetings or right before it as a lead-in, as an appetizer, something to wet our whistle as baseball fans before Scott Boras really gets to work and potentially has one of those winter meetings like he did when it was the Strasburg, Garrett Cole, Anthony Rendon class, where it's just domino after domino, big contract to big contract, and Scott Boras can hold up a winter meetings where it's like, hey, I got $1.5 billion in contracts signed during the winter meetings. So you could see Soto go all of a sudden, maybe Pete Alonso is the next domino, maybe Corbin Burns. That's what I think we all want to see happen. And the fact that offers are coming in Thanksgiving week, it gives them 2 weeks to, create a bidding war. And all these teams put their initial offers in. Maybe some teams are nowhere close. Who knows? But all of a sudden, I'm sure it might just come down to Mets and Yankees. And who knows? Maybe the Mets get really far out in front here and they put together an aggressive offer. Maybe that $660 million deal is real and it gets put on the table and the Yankees have to decide if they're going to match it. And maybe that is ultimately all the Juan Soto negotiations come down to. The Mets putting the most aggressive offer on the table and the Yankees getting a chance to match. And if it does come down to that, and if Juan Soto really does want to stay a Yankee and he signs with the Yankees because they are willing to meet the Mets wherever they end up, what will they do next? That's what we're going to talk about in the next segment. First, though, a quick word from our sponsors. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off site-wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with the promo code MLB. With 5 generations of experience, Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience, and their gifting experts have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide during the cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code MLB and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply. Stay up to date with all the latest in the world of sports when you check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We're within 100 subscribers of 11,000. Appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe and get us closer and closer to that goal. All right, so the Mets don't sign Juan Soto. We're going to live in this hypothetical world. He re-signs with the Yankees at 15 years, $660, whatever it is. The Mets drive out the price, but the Yankees meet that asking price, and Soto is off the table. Now what do? Look at the free agent class. Outside of Soto, you got Pete Alonso, Christian Walker, Willy Adames, Alex Bregman, Anthony Santander, Teoscar Hernandez, Tyler O'Neill, Jurickson Profar, Gleyber Torres. Like, that's sort of the list of guys that are, no doubt about it, starters, guys that should get multi-year deals, guys that can really change your lineup if you sign them. Of that list, name the better bat than Pete Alonso. I don't think you're finding a better bat than Pete Alonso. If you want to talk to me about the idea of Willy Adames and getting the offense and the defense, I can sort of understand it. But ultimately, I still fall under the belief that if you don't sign Juan Soto, step one, number one priority in this free agent class, even above signing an ace, is re-signing Pete Alonso. That's top priority because you can't sell to me Willy Adames and then an ace. As much as it might make sense, long-term positional fit, your lineup is taking a step back. It just is. If you're expecting Willy Adames to hit 30 home runs, that's a losing battle to be in. Can he? Yes, he just did it. Will he year in, year out? I don't know. Pete Alonso will put up 30 plus home runs every single year. You can't lose Pete Alonso's offensive production unless you sign Juan Soto, in my opinion. So, first and foremost, plan B, so to speak, is re-signing Pete. And plan A might be signing Soto and Pete. And if you do that, that's the one circumstance where I can understand the Mets not landing one of the top 3 pitchers on the market. And that's Blake Snell, Corbin Burnes, and of course, Max Fried. If they go that all in and they get Juan Soto and they also re-sign Pete Alonso, I'm okay if they strike out on the aces and they maybe spend a little bit more cautiously in the starting pitching market, because the starting pitching market is volatile. And there's a world where that Corbin Burnes or the Max Fried contract that might be 7 years, 8 years, that those deals can age really poorly. So for me, as much as I want to see the Mets get an ace, and if they don't land Soto, they have to find a way to improve, and getting that ace should be a priority. I am not as gung-ho as I think a lot of fans might be on making sure you get one of those 3 pitchers. To me, if you sign Juan Soto, even if you don't get Pete Alonso, I can be talked into being a little more creative about filling out your rotation, where maybe Sean Manaea is the best pitcher you sign, but you make a trade for a Pablo Lopez or a Luis Castillo or the Garrett Crochet talks, which I'm not thrilled with, but hey, go back, listen to past podcasts. I have talked about Garrett Crochet, and I have talked about all these different pitchers. We are going to focus in on tomorrow's show, I think, on which ace I want of the big 3. But overall, I would say priority list, if you don't sign Juan Soto, get the Pete Alonso deal done and get it done quickly, and then change your focus over to those aces and get one of them to sign. Because if you end up making your biggest 2 moves be Pete Alonso coming back and you landed the ace, I think you still had a great offseason, and then you still got to fill out the rest of your roster. So step 3, after step 1 being Pete, step 2 being an ace, step 3 is more pitching to me. You got to just keep adding arms. At least 1, if not 2, middle of the rotation starters. 1 elite high leverage reliever, whether that is trading for a Devin Williams, whether that is signing Tanner Scott. Get Edwin Diaz, a legit setup man who can save when Edwin can't, and really give yourself a 2-headed monster to build around. I trust David Stearns to find some diamonds in the rough. I hope Daniel Nunez is healthy and a big part of the bullpen. I hope that Reed Garrett can build off of his first full season being a leverage guy and be even better next year. I hope that David Stearns hits on a couple of the diamonds in the rough, and maybe Jose Budo stays in the pen and is very effective, or somebody else comes up and surprises us. To me, though, you can't just go into next year and hope that Ryan Stanek can deliver and you re-sign him. You got to shoot a little bit higher. So I would say after getting the ace and Pete Alonso, getting the high leverage reliever and filling out that rotation are the next biggest priorities. And then once the pitching is settled, or alongside the pitching being settled, there is still the outfield that has to be addressed. If you don't sign Juan Soto, your outfield mix is Brandon Nimmo in left, Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor in center, and Starling Marte in right, with Jeff McNeil being able to move out into right field as well. And of course, maybe Acuna you can play into the outfield. You have your prospects, but you're talking about big league outfielders. It really would just be your 2 center fielders that can't really hit in Siri and Taylor. Brandon Nimmo, the one guy that should be an all-star level player you hope next year, and Starling Marte, who's clearly past his prime, who's probably better suited to be a DH or at least get a lot of time at DH than to be your everyday right fielder. So if the Mets don't sign Juan Soto, they still have to address their outfield. how would they do it in a market that I think is a little bit thinner than some might realize when it comes to outfielders? We'll talk about that to close the show. First, though, another quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, do live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Make sure that first bet is one that will hit, because again, you just visit FanDuel.com to join today and you get started with that $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. All right, so we're living in the world where Juan Soto did not sign with the Mets and the Mets re-signed Pete Alonso. What does their lineup look like? You got Lindor, Nimmo, Vientos, Alonso. Those are the 4 bats that you really like as everyday players. Beyond that, Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte, Francisco Alvarez, likely starters. Jose Siri or Tyrone Taylor in center. DH, Mauricio, Beatty. I mean, this team would need a couple bats for sure. You want to address DH potentially, although Marte could end up in that role. And ideally, you need an outfielder. And also, if you're going to have a lineup that's going to run out Vientos, Alonso, Marte, Alvarez, Siri, Taylor, all those guys are right-handed. You really need to find a left-handed bat. With that said, top of the outfield market beyond Juan Soto is Anthony Santander and Teoscar Hernandez, and I'm not a fan of either of them, because if I'm going to give up 2 draft picks and potentially $1 million in the international bonus pool for signing international free agents, which could be Roki Sasaki money, which we have to talk about at some point in the show, and I promise we will. But the bottom line is, if you're giving up all of that for a free agent, it better be Juan Soto or Corbin Burns, maybe Max Fried. It's a short list for me of free agents that are worth that. Now, if you've already signed Corbin Burns or you've already signed Juan Soto, then yes, it's a little bit more of an easy pill to swallow when you're already in it to then get the second free agent, give up the 3rd and the 6th round pick compared to the 2nd, the 5th, and the bonus pool money. But I'm still not sure I want to give anything up for Anthony Santander or Teoscar Hernandez. These are free agents that are in their 30s. For Santander, 30 years old. Teoscar, 32, who have had some great years, some years where they're a little bit less than great, and guys that aren't really good fielders. So they're one-dimensional. They probably should be DHs in the long run, depending on how long of a contract they sign. Santander, he just hit 44 bombs. He's 30 years old. Why would he not ask for a 5 or a 6-year deal? And if I'm the Mets, I'm not going near that. On-base percentage this past year was .308. Teoscar Hernandez, 33 home runs, 99 RBIs, big hits in the playoffs, still struck out 29% of the time. And JD Martinez was unbelievable in a Dodgers uniform. And with the Mets, came down to earth. Now, JD Martinez, much older than Teoscar Hernandez, didn't have a normal spring training. But even with all of that, I am wary of those 2 free agents. So now you look at the rest of the outfield market. Tyler O'Neill is right-handed. I feel like you want a left-handed bat. I'd prefer O'Neill over Teoscar Hernandez because I think the upside is pretty similar. Tyler O'Neill, more injury-prone, more risk, shorter contract. I don't think he's getting more than 2 years. So to me, that's an easier pill to swallow than going 4 years on Teoscar Hernandez, and then you're basically just re-upping that Starling Marte contract that you're about to get out of. You're just adding another one that's very similar to it, where this guy could age rapidly in his 30s. You really don't know. Then you have Jurickson Profar. Left-handed hitter, so he checks that box. All-star season he had this past year. But is he going to do that outside of San Diego? I have my doubts. He's 32 years old. He might get a 3 or 4 year deal based on the season he had. I don't know if that's the free agent I'd be signing. So I'm looking more at 1-year deal free agents, aren't going to break the bank too much, left-handed bat, maybe provide some pop. There's 3 names that fit that billing, and then there's a 4th name that I think fans would be way more excited about. That's more of a DH. So we're going to start with the guys that can still play in the outfield. Jesse Winker is the obvious candidate. He just played well for you, had an awesome postseason, loved it seems like. Bring him back, keep the continuity, and you roll. And I feel like that makes a lot of sense. You know what you're going to get. Max Kepler is the bet on a bounce back. He did hit 24 home runs in 2023, but he sandwiched that 24 home run campaign with 2 years in 2022 and 2024 where he had a 94 weighted runs created plus. Weighted runs created plus is a stat that measures hitters on a league average of 100. So bottom line, he was a below average hitter. He only hit 8 home runs in this past season, hit 9 home runs in 2022. And again, there's been injuries, which probably has limited his production some, but that's also a risk. I wouldn't be mad at it, but I think I like Jesse Winker more just for the familiarity of it. Then you have the guy that if you're a longtime Locked On Mets listener, you know that every single offseason, every single trade deadline, I got to talk about the reunion because I love this player. Former Met, homegrown. I remember watching him in 2015, Marlins Park, watched him take BP and hit like 5 home runs in a row to where it felt like he hit the exact same seat in the upper tank at Marlins Park. It's Michael Conforto. And I fell in love then, and I never give it up. So yes, here's my obligatory Michael Conforto re-sign segment. If you're going to re-sign Jesse Winker, right, bringing back, or it's not re-signing at this point, it'd just be signing Michael Conforto. But these are 2 very similar free agents is my only point here. This past year, Michael Conforto hit 20 home runs, had a reasonable strikeout rate of 24.2%, pretty good walk rate of 8.6%. Compare him to Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker got on base at a much higher clip, 360 clip, compared to Conforto at 309. But Conforto outslugged him by 45 points. Michael Conforto had a 759 OPS. Jesse Winker had a 764 OPS, separated by 5 points. Career numbers, identical OPS of 804, which I thought was pretty crazy. Last year, Jesse Winker was worth 1 defensive run saved in the outfield, minus 11 outs above average. Conforto, 0 defensive runs saved, minus 4 outs above average. He played left this past season. 2023, he played right, minus 3 outs above average, minus 3 defensive runs saved. I think Conforto is going to bring you more pop, probably a better glove, and also a ton of experience playing in right field at Citi Field. Jesse Winker is going to get on base at a better clip. They're both good for that clubhouse to me. These guys are ideal free agents to sign to, grab some time from Starling Marte and right, DH some, be good in the clubhouse. Just ideal fits for the New York Mets in this current situation they're in. Here's the big name, though, that they could still sign. Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson is not going to face right-handed pitching. He's not going to play the field. Did not play a single inning in the outfield this past year. With that said, by that specialized role of being your DH against all righties, Jock Peterson was elite. 275 average, 393 on base. Nearly a 400 on base percentage for Jock Peterson. 515 slug. For those of you counting at home, that's an OPS over 900. There's not a lot of guys that will put up an OPS over 900 at the amount of volume that Jock Peterson had. He hit 23 bombs, drove in 64, had a 151 WRC plus, 51 points better than your league average hitter. He is really suited to be that right-handed masher who's going to be in your lineup, who can break up your righties. You can put him right in between Vientos and Alonso. You could have him, bat 5th behind Alonso as that bridge to the bottom part of the lineup, that left-handed bat that breaks up all the righties, where then you go to maybe an Alvarez or a Marte. Jock Peterson would be a really nice signing. I wonder, is he finally going to get a 2 or 3 year deal in this specialized role that he has, or is he just a 1-year merchant on expensive deals? that might be the case. He might just be in that group of guys that can't get the multi-year deal, but can get paid handsomely year in, year out. And I would not be mad at it at all if the Mets sort of overpaid a little bit on a 1-year deal to not be tied to him long term. Let the situation at DH always be a little bit more open. But for the upcoming season, you slide Jock Peterson, the middle of the Mets lineup, as your DH. Starling Marte wouldn't get as much DH time, but then again, against left-handed pitching, Jock Peterson's not going to be in there, so you could have Marte DH against lefties, go with Siri and Taylor in the outfield with Brendan Nimmo when you have a left-hander on the mound. You can still get Marte some time against righties where he sits on the bench and you put Jeff McNeil out in the outfield, or maybe it's Acuna in the outfield, or maybe you're just going with that defensive-minded outfield with Taylor starting over him. There's still ways around it, and Marte might miss time, but regardless, Jock Peterson answers DH for you. He will be significantly better than anyone you have internally for that spot. Yes, you got to find a right-handed complement, and if Marte is hurt, you have to be creative, but you know what? You have Ronnie Mauricio that could always play third and have Vientos DH, or you could have Acuna in the lineup somewhere, and maybe he's at third or he's at second. Who knows? The bottom line is Jock Peterson would make your lineup better. I think he's going to be able to put up a similar season next year. I don't see any reason why he's going to slow down. Maybe a little bit just based on the fact that he was hitting in a very friendly ballpark in Arizona. So maybe the on base percentage dips a little bit. The average dips a little bit. Maybe he hits 260 instead of 275. Maybe he gets on base at a 370 clip instead of a 393 clip. But can he still hit 23 bombs for you as part of a platoon at DH? I think so. He makes a lot of sense. He does. I think overall, you still obviously want the Mets to sign Juan Soto. But if they don't, if they bring back Pete Alonso, their lineup's going to be at a pretty good place because it's the same lineup that nearly went to the World Series. You address your pitching, and then you find the right role players to come in, whether that is bringing Jesse Winker back, reuniting with Michael Conforto. Maybe the Mets front office loves Max Kepler. Maybe there's another free agent that I haven't even identified that makes sense. Maybe there's a trade target out there that you can go after and fill out that lineup. But if it's my money, I'm staying away from the top of the market in this free agent class when it comes to bats outside of Pete Alonso and maybe Willie Adames. Other than that, and I guess Christian Walker if you sign Soto and you're not re-signing Pete. But this is a class that is top heavy. I think there's some value that can be found a little bit further down the class, and that's where I'd go when it comes to filling out your needs in the outfield, because you know what? Hopefully your top prospects can cover that. Hopefully Drew Gilbert is your right fielder maybe at some point this season, and maybe Jet Williams is in center or Acuna is in center. You have some guys coming down the pipeline that might be able to grab time. I'm not saying that you count on it. That's why you sign a Conforto or a Winker or a Kepler to a 1-year deal as a stopgap. And then you see, you might need to be right back in that market next year. But for now, the Mets, if they don't sign Soto, they got to re-sign Pete. They have to add a ton of pitching, and then they still got to find a couple more bats on the open market. We'll see what they do on tomorrow's show. Barring any news, I'm going to break down the big three when it comes to the aces. Which one should the Mets sign? Max Fried, Blake Snell, Corbin Burnes. We'll talk about it all. So make sure if you are listening today, you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. You'll follow me on social media at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything in the world of sports. Talking about Locked On Sports today with our local hosts from each team, league-wide hosts from each league. Find Locked On Sports today streaming 24/7 on YouTube.